Hi, welcome back to Type Evolution. I'm Olympia and this video is about what is actually a feeler type. So I'm guessing that you have recently taken a test about the 16 personality types derived from Carl Jung, also known as the MBTI system or socionic system. And now you're wondering, okay, you got F as a result, what does it actually mean? Also, this video is actually for those of us who already know about feelers, thinkers, and even the specific functions, but they might be unaware of the potential pitfalls or the most common misconceptions that people have when it comes to the F dichotomy. Feeler thinker is a dichotomy in the Jungian system, Carl Jung, famous psychologist, and basically it is a certain orientation. I would say a cognitive orientation. And I have talked a bit more in depth about this in the previous video, what is actually a thinker. I'm not going into any specific functions here. This is a basics video, but I think it's really important to know for everyone who just wants to learn more about the feeler dichotomy. What are the misconceptions when it comes to the feeler typing, the feeler dichotomy? One common misconception, very simply, is that feeling types are more quote-unquote emotional. And this is a problem because the feeling cognitive function is not about necessarily emotions only. It has a component of emotionality, but there are T types in the world who are very emotional. Everyone has emotions. Everyone can be happy, sad, angry. You get the gist. And there are even T types who can experience very strong emotions. This is especially the case for like the extroverted thinking types. They can be, to some extent, quite emotionally expressive, sometimes even apparently more than certain introverted feeling types. You can be an emotional thinking type in the Jungian personality type system. People often think that feeling types are categorically all moody. Once again, there can be a correlation between people being moody and feeling types. However, there are even thinking types who can be moody. Like the most common reasons for moodiness based on my observations. If you are born as a female, just having your menstrual cycle based on the hormonal profile is gonna elicit a more emotional response. It's gonna make you quote-unquote more moody. You can research it, but basically a female hormonal profile varies across the month. So men have like a daily rhythm and women have like a monthly rhythm, as we know. So just those variations in hormones can make us feel differently, can make women, like biological women, feel emotional during certain periods of their cycle. That does not necessarily mean that they have to be F types. Yes, there is a strong correlation between women being F types. Most women in the world are F types. However, you can be a thinking woman and still experience those emotional fluctuations simply due to your hormonal profile. Hormones play a role here, and that's also why it is not necessarily a Jungian thing. The other most common thing that many people seem to ignore or seem to attribute to personality type is actually trauma responses. So people who are very moody, they actually usually have experienced trauma in the past. I want to clarify also, I'm not a licensed psychologist. This is just based on what I've learned online and through my observations and through my coaching practice. But basically, the way how you emotionally regulate is going to have an impact on how quote-unquote moody you are. If you do not have the right tools to either control your emotions, to stabilize your emotions, or to how to deal with them, how to process them, that will result in moodiness, or that will result in very strong emotional reactions. So emotional regulation is a key point, and they are T types that have not learned how to deal with their emotions. And also F types, to be fair. There's a lot of people out there who just don't know how to process emotions. If you're lucky, you don't have to learn this and you know how to emotionally regulate. As a side note, it has something to do with accepting your emotions, experiencing them, giving yourself the space to feel them, and then finding some kind of positive outlet, some kind of positive stress relief to deal with it, like taking a walk, meditating, things like that. So everyone has to find their own way of how to positively regulate their emotions. So if you have not learned that, you will be moody. You will have a lot of emotional mood swings, emotional reactions, besides the hormonal stuff. And of course, also if you are not happy with your life, but that's obvious, right? But besides that, so if you have that problem, then you might mistype as an F type, or you might mistype other people as F types simply because they seem always moody, or they have like emotional reactions and things like that. T types can have those as well. Once again, I want to clarify, moodiness, just emotions, are not the feeling cognitive dimension that we are talking about here with personality type. Anxiety and clinginess are also a trauma response. So if you have an anxious attachment style, if you have been abandoned in the past, there is a high chance that you will feel very anxious, or you will become very clingy in certain interactions with people. And once again, that does not mean that you are an F type. I have had a T client that is convinced or thinks they are an F type just because they get anxious when certain people don't do certain things. But everything else about them is very T. And it can be hard to explain to that person that just because you experience anxiety, just because you want to please people, does not necessarily mean that you're actually an F type. Just because you want to be on good terms with people, it doesn't mean that. It can really just mean that you have an anxious attachment style, which clouds your judgment here and makes you believe that you're an F type. I talk more about the other stereotypes in the previous video. Okay, so what is left? Then what is actually a feeling type or an ethical type? Feeling can have its own quote-unquote logic. It is based on morals, and it is, in a sense, more intuitive than when a thinking type comes up with a moral system. A thinking type really goes through like thinking parameters, and the feeling type does it more based on, yeah, to some extent, how they feel. A feeling type can come to ethical judgments without necessarily feeling very strong emotions whilst doing that. Very short description of the ethical description here from the previous video. I prefer what they call ethical and socionics, which is also a system based on the 16 types. So basically, it's less about feeling parameters, but ethical parameters. So usually F types structure information based on what is morally good or bad, what is the right ethical conduct, the right ethical behavior, what is the human behavior in the situation, how should it be adapted, or what is the right mood, or what is just the mood in this situation, how is my personal moral compass, my personal morals or immorals. Okay, welcome back. You can be an ethical or feeling type and be immoral. Your personal moral blueprint, you could say, can be flawed. There is a higher chance that it's going to be not flawed, simply because as an F type, you will naturally have the ability to pick up on ethical nuances that T types might miss or find difficult to pick up on naturally. However, if you have gone through a lot of unresolved trauma, if you have a very negative outlook on life, there is also a high chance that your ethics or your morals will be dark or dark side, negative, destructive. So it really depends here, I have to admit. But overall, feeling types do have the ability, the ethical ability, to be more quote-unquote suave, more easily able to pick up on these norms of behavior with them and other people. Okay, there is also another caveat here that if you have social anxiety, then this might also inhibit you. It could be still an F type that is inhibited And then if this inhibition is there, it can also inhibit your ability to pick up how people behave and how to categorize that. And then the only way to really figure out who you truly are is either to, have a typing session with me. You find the info down below, or to get rid of that social anxiety, or at least manage that. And then you can see, okay, am I actually an F-type that has this ability naturally, or am I a T-type and that's just how it is? And I want to also say that it's not just about social stuff, it's also about one-on-one stuff with other people. And how easy it is for you to learn when it comes to either social interactions or just one-on-one interactions. If it comes easy to you to learn that, even if you are currently not good at it, then there's a higher chance you're an F-type that has just been inhibited or traumatized, and that's why it is the way it is right now. Okay, so before I close this video, I want to briefly touch upon why you should know this. Like, what's the point of knowing about this? What an ethical or feeling type is versus a thinking type? I would say mostly personally, or I would also advise it to others, but also how I've used it. It is good to know because we all need both in our lives. Whenever we lack in a certain cognitive dimension or cognitive dichotomy in our lives, then it tends to create imbalances, and you might end up distorting who you really are in order to create some kind of balance in your life. So what that means practically speaking, so if you are a female and you are an F-type, then if you have a partner, a boyfriend or a husband, then naturally there's a higher chance that the person will be a T-type. And then you will just naturally have a T-type in your life and problem solved. And vice versa, if you're a guy and you happen to fit into the stereotypical mold of being a T-type, then yeah, it will also be rather easy for you probably to find an F female and then just have that in your life as a balance. Going against the stereotype, so if you're like a feeling male, like an F male, then the women you come across, there's a high chance that they will be also F females. And also I want to say that the kind of people we make friends with often are the same as us when it comes to F or T. So F people usually have F friends, T people usually have T friends. There are some exceptions, but this is usually how it goes. So if you have F male, it will be difficult for you to find a T person, simply because most females will be F, and because you're an F person, the male friends you have will probably be F. So if you're an F male, you will have to get kind of out of your way, out of your comfort zone, to find someone who's a T-type. And this doesn't have to be a partner, though. This can be obviously complementary, but it can also just be a T friend, a T mentor. So you kind of have to look out for that and go out of your comfort zone a bit. And on the other hand, if you're a T female, a very similar issue comes up. Most men you will come across will be T, and then it will be harder to find a guy who is an F male. Though I have to say, it is easier to find an F male than it is to find a T woman. F men, this is once again just my observations, and I think I also saw it in like a statistic somewhere that F men are more common than T women, especially when we go down to like the rarer types. So if you're a T woman, it's maybe not as hard to find an F male, but it would still be advised also to have F friends if you can manage. So we need that balance because, like I said, if we don't have F and T in our lives, then I just see people becoming really weird. I see people really starting to overdevelop that other aspect in themselves. So like, F people trying to develop their T, their thinking abilities too much, and the T people trying to develop their feeling abilities too much. And it kind of starts going also against the purpose of your personality type, which is to be the best of your personality type, to embody what that personality type is supposed to be in a way. So that's the purpose of your personality type, is actually to be yourself, ironically. is to use the strengths of your personality for the greater good. That's why you have a personality type. That's why we all have different personality types. So yeah, so it actually becomes a disservice to yourself and to other people if you try to transform yourself in such a way that you go against your nature. The problem is, however, it is a very natural occurrence if you are, let's say, an F person and you are only surrounded by F people in your life. You will naturally develop your T more. And the other way is also, if you're a T type and you're only surrounded by T people, you will try to develop your F more. It is not always the worst thing in the world, but if it goes too far, you lose touch with yourself. You get out of touch with yourself, you lose yourself basically, or you become like a caricature of that type, and that's not really cool. That's just a problem. Yeah, so that's mainly the advice here. Of course, also to have the awareness to do things that suit your personality, so that suit being an F type and that suit being a T type. But I've talked more about this topic in the previous video, so if you want to know more about that specifically, check out the other video. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please comment, like, subscribe, all the good stuff. And if you want me to type you, or if you want me to coach you based on your personality, you find the links down below. Okay, have a good day. Bye.